A historic moment in the Middle East as world leaders signed a deal formalizing a ceasefire in Gaza, a deal that President Donald Trump heralded as the beginning of peace in the Middle East.
This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too. It's going to hold up.
It's going to hold up, he says. That summit there in Egypt capping off a momentous day that saw Hamas release all 20 of the living Israeli hostages, reuniting them with their families after more than 2 years of captivity amid war. Really not possible to watch that without becoming emotional. Parents, spouses, children, once again holding loved ones that they, of course, feared that they might never see again. And at the same time, massive celebration broke out in Gaza. Israel released almost 2,000 Palestinians, many of whom were being held without charges. And now, the question, what comes next? Will this ceasefire hold? Will Hamas disarm? Will Israel remove its military from Gaza? Today, President Trump said the next phase of talks is already underway as he projected confidence that this ceasefire marks simply the beginning.
After years of suffering and bloodshed, the war in Gaza is over. This will be maybe the greatest deal of them all, period. And I want to thank all of you and all of these great nations and this region for what it's gone through and all of the fights it's had, or life over death and hope over strife and harmony over hatred. That's what we want. We want it to be that way because together we're going to forge a magnificent, great, and enduring peace.
All right, let's get off the sidelines, head into the arena. My panel is here. We also have CNN's Clarissa Ward in Israel and CNN's Nick Robertson on the ground in Egypt. Clarissa, let me start with you. You spent much of the day at what's become known as Hostages Square in Tel Aviv. What did you see? And, you know, we watched a little bit of the joy for some of these families, but talk about what they're feeling right now.
Well, we saw people who had started arriving, Casey, at 4 or 5 in the morning, tens of thousands of them, many of them people, Israelis who had been coming to Hostages Square every single week for more than 2 years, demanding that all actions be taken to bring them home. Many of them were either friends of hostages or friends of hostages. This is a small country. There is a tight-knit sense of community. And for the people that we saw in that square, it was just so very important to be there, to bear witness, to welcome them home, to celebrate, and also to grieve. Early on in the day, I would say the atmosphere was quite subdued. People were taking a moment to reflect. We saw a lot of tears, we saw a lot of prayers, and then as the exchange got underway and those last final 20 living Israeli hostages finally made their way out of Gaza back into Israel, you saw the crowd erupting into applause and cheers, and a lot of cheering as well, I should say, for President Donald Trump. There were posters all around Hostages Square celebrating his role in all of this, and to the people of Israel, he really is seen as being the integral force that kind of pushed this thing over the finish line. And so for many here, I think the overwhelming sense watching those reunion videos, which you just played, some of which are incredibly moving to watch, there is a sense of kind of turning a page or closing a chapter on a very dark 2-year period. But obviously, for people in Gaza, it is a very different story. And we saw them as well waiting. 1,700 detainees held by Israel without charge throughout the war. They were crammed onto buses, released to the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. One man who hadn't realized until the moment he was released that his wife and daughters had been killed in an airstrike. And so you just have a sense of the scale of the pain, the grief, the loss, and also the enormity that now lies ahead in terms of, particularly with regards to Gaza, rebuilding, ensuring that the security situation does not become chaotic and kinetic once again, and of course getting that desperately needed massive surge into one of the worst humanitarian crises we have seen in recent history, Casey.
Just really remarkable. And Nick Robertson, you're in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, for us, and that is, of course, where this deal was signed. We still haven't seen the exact contents of what it is. Can you walk through what we do know and underscore the significance of this moment?
Yeah, it is a significant moment, and President Trump was surrounded when he was signing this document by the mediators, by the President of Turkey, President of Egypt, the Emir of Qatar. They were all there signing this document, but as you rightly say, we don't know what was in that document. We don't know how the momentum and the spirit of this sort of hugely successful day of hostage release, prisoner release, ceasefire in place, how this translates going forward. Everyone said, let's look at the momentum here from phase one and push that into phase two. But you looked at the faces of some of the leaders standing behind President Trump while he was there giving his speech. You know, you had the Greek Prime Minister, Mitsotakis, you had Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister. Next to him, you had Shehbaz Sharif, the Pakistani Prime Minister. Next to him, Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister. Next to him, Mark Carney. All these leaders had gone there to look for that momentum and to get some answers about how the situation moves forward. President Trump spoke about the money coming from some of the sort of Gulf partners and some of those others there to pay for the rebuilding. But what he didn't get into is the thorny issue of things like the International Stabilization Force. How many troops? It was talked about maybe 20 or 40,000, but it's unclear which countries they come from, what their mandate will be. Will they have the support and backing of the UN? All of these questions. And our Becky Anderson sat down with Egypt's foreign minister before the summit began, and he said, look, one of the key issues for us is that there are actually US troops inside of Gaza. This is how he explained it.
We need American boots on the ground, the troops in order.
In Gaza?
Yeah, why not? I mean, and that's very important in order to.
Have you got a commitment from Donald Trump for American boots on the ground in Gaza?
We are in this process. We are talking, and also, of course, we have to identify the nature of these forces. You know, is it peace enforcing or peacekeeping?
And that's the big question here, peace enforcing or peacekeeping? What are their rules of engagement if they see someone with a gun? Are they able to shoot at them? Are they only able to shoot if they're shot at? Or do they just have to run and hide if they're shot at? And remember, the onus is on that international stabilizing force to disarm Hamas. Hamas doesn't want to disarm. We didn't get any sense of the detail of that today, and that was clearly a core issue for the host nation here. That's what the foreign minister said. What are the rules of engagement going to be for these troops? A prime question for any country sending its young soldiers potentially into harm's way, Casey.
Yeah, a lot of questions just raised there. Nick Robertson, Clarissa Ward, thank you both very much for your reporting.